Today on Photography After Hours, developing your style. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, welcome back to Photography After Hours. I'd like to introduce everyone. So we have Sprague, Susie, Scott, and my name is Nick. And we are the Photography After Hours crew. We are sponsored by PAC, who does photo walks, meetings, networking, workshops, photo trips, and all that cool stuff up there. So check us out on photoadvclub.com. So today we're going to be talking about developing a style. And the first thing that we were talking about is figuring out who your target audience is. So we always start with Sprague, so we might as well go there.
All right.
Sprague,
Yeah.
how you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. I just wanted to mention that somebody gave me the cheap stuff, so it's all right. Yeah. What the hell? Good grief here. At any rate, when you first get started, everybody tells you that you need to develop a style because they'll look at your pictures and they'll say that they're all over the place, and maybe you need to, and they usually are, and so they try to get you honed in on a particular style of photography, so there'll be some consistency in your work. So if you actually go to sell it, then somebody will have something that they can hang their hat on. They know what your pictures are going to look like, and so that's kind of the struggle that you start with when you...
Because everyone shoots everything. You ask them, ask any photographer, what do you shoot? I shoot everything, and that's not always great if you're trying to specialize. That's like going up to a plumber and saying, what do you do? Well, I do everything. I fix it all. You're, Bob the fix-it-all guy, and they don't do anything well,
Yeah, exactly. And, the other thing is how you process it, too. I mean, some people do a very minimalist processing, and others get in there and they just HDR it to the point where it's got fur hanging off of it and, everything in between. And it is a style, and it kind of depends on, what you intend to sell. I mean, if it's going to be a painting, then maybe type of piece of artwork, then maybe you do want a more impressionist view, but
furry photography.
Furry photography. Fur is your friend.
Furry. I've never heard it referred to as furry.
Hey, what about the velvet bullfighter pictures? There was that.
So how do you develop a target audience? How do you figure out who you want to shoot for?
Probably just the more you shoot, it will become evident who your audience is. The more you get out and use your camera and kind of zero in on what it is that you not only enjoy shooting but have an aptitude for, I think that will ultimately over time float to the surface, and then you'll find out who your real audience is.
So you kind of have to start off shooting everything to figure out what you really want, like any job.
Sure.
You go to school, regular school, and that's why they have you learn everything. Even though we all know we hate math, we have to take it to see maybe if we do like it. And they're like, oh, look, they like it. Let's go send them to build airplanes because they really like math. But everyone else is like, yeah, I could do without it.
I think turn over a whole lot of rocks to find your truffle.
Yes.
Well, and everybody starts off, it's like there's this progression. People start off and it's like they'll shoot landscapes at first, and then
They're easy. They don't move.
Exactly. And then they graduate to people, and then then
dogs first. Then.
Yeah, or animals. Wildlife, and then people, and then they dance from genre to genre to genre, and then they figure out what it is they like first of all, what they're good at.
They suck at first. I usually find out what you suck at. Like, I really suck at wildlife, so I don't even go near that.
But
just stay away. It's like
that's how
if
you.
you
That's
loved
how you
it
start.
though, you would spend more time on it, and then you would develop more skills in that area. So you would follow your passion, and you would get better. But you don't like it, so.
It's not that I dislike it, I just suck at it.
We're just going to take your camera away from you.
Well, and all the dog and the cat bites, too. Sometimes Kitty doesn't understand.
That's why I think I got it. When I first got into digital from film, I got a point and shoot, so I have tons and tons of pictures of cat butt. Like, oh, look, it looks so cute, click, and there was a delay, and that's why I was like, that's why I got into DSLRs again, because I'm like, this is horrible. It's like, click, and then 10 seconds later, like, click. It was like, nope.
Sell it to other cats,
This has all gone downhill.
He's found his audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, is there a one-size-fits-all kind of style that you guys think is out there?
No.
No?
Because it's like any art, it's subjective to what people like. So there are people who
love cat.
Yeah, they're all over the place. So, you know, I think eventually for people who get serious about this and really do start to hone into style, it really comes down to, you know, what you can produce on a consistent level and eventually sell to clients. And so that's what it really comes down.
Well, I don't know. Do you guys think that it's necessary even to be talking about this for just professionals? I think anyone doing photography needs to be consistent.
Well, I think so
Even a
too. I mean,
hobbyist.
I've looked at a lot of people's portfolios and it's just like random like stuff. It's just like here's a car, here's a cat, here's like this like trip from wherever, Hawaii. You know, I mean, it's just a bunch of random stuff.
I thought you weren't going to tell anyone about my portfolio.
Yeah.
I thought you said that was a secret.
We're going to start posting
It's better than average family
pictures
album,
of your portfolio.
you know,
Yeah,
just-
so it's like a random, like, and people need to understand, they need to, like, hone in on, you know, some subject matter or some, you know, photographic technique or processing technique or, like, even one of my biggest pet peeves is when I look at someone's portfolio and it's just a mix of, like, color photos and black and white. It's like, if you're going to put together collections, people need to understand how to cull and collect and put together a collection. If you're going to do black and white, do a collection of black and white.
So to clarify, it's not that we shouldn't all be shooting everything that we can shoot, but if we're going to compose or compile a portfolio that is meant to be exemplary of our work, it should be cohesive in one manner or another, and that we should kind of try to have a theme and concentrate on certain types of attributes and refinement and create the body of work.
Part of developing your style is not showing everybody everything. It's knowing what not to show people.
1%. Only show everyone 1% of your best.
And you know,
stuff.
I've seen some people who do like commercial photography, and they also do portraits and they do headshots, but they separate those out. It's not like here's my stuff and it's all in one like mosh posh of like gallery.
Like, oh, here's my bar mitzvah and boudoir.
Right.
Everybody looks at Sprague.
I think I saw that. It's a new show on CBS. Bar mitzvah and boudoir, you know.
Like the little kid's eyes, like, you're a man now.
Yeah. Why did this take so long, you know?
So you were talking a little bit at the beginning, Sprague, about a overprocessed kind of photo. Is that considered a style, do you think? A lot of people are like, well, that's my style. And you're like, well, you'll look back at that in a year or two and think otherwise. But do you think that's a style nonetheless?
It can be. I mean, when you first start out with HDR, I mean, it's very contrasty and it's not something that you've been able to produce before. And it's really pretty amazing. And after a while, you learn to refine it to where it, you know, has a little bit more of a, more refined look, I guess, more natural kind of a look. But the thing is, if you're going to put it on a piece of canvas, sometimes that looks very good. And the other thing is, depending on who your audience is, I mean, if you're going to sell it as a canvas print, I mean, that might be the way to shoot it. And, you know, I've, some of my pictures that, you know, and I've done the same thing. I've got some with a lot of fur on it, and surprisingly... that seems to be the picture that people typically like best, and sometimes something that's just
lend themselves better to pushing the envelope a little bit more in terms of cooking them a little bit more. And like some of your photos from Cuba are accentuated by the HDR, you know, and a touch of vibrance, that kind of stuff. Not really furry.
Slightly furred.
Slightly. But it gives it a little bit of a surrealism, and I think it works well because it's so, there's lots of vintage elements, but they are current day photos. And so it works.
I'm going to disagree a little bit here. All right, because we've all seen those photos and they just look completely overprocessed. And I think what it is it's the photographer's inexperience with processing, and they try to bring it in, and they think that the more they do to it, the more that like they can turn it into something. And I think that's just their inexperience of knowing how to like move the sliders and come to a look. You know, now there are styles like you see in modern digital photography where people are trying to emulate an old film style. So they might cross process it so that it looks like it was, that photo was taken with a certain type of film, with a certain type of grain, and that it came from a certain type of era, And so that is more of a style because it was a conscious choice. It's like, I want it to look like this type of film, or I want it to look like this type of thing. So that's a conscious style. But I think a lot of people, they just get in there and they start moving sliders around and make it crispy, crunchy, whatever. And it's not really style. I think that's just inexperience of not, knowing what it is that they're trying to achieve. They're just trying to get to something that looks cool. And they're just, it's...
I
think
agree that
yeah.
that's often the case. I
Well,
agree.
Yeah, the style is slide all the sliders to the right and hope for the best.
There's
More
a
is
new
better.
one now. A lot of people do this like cross fading, and they're introducing, opposite colors on the color wheel. So like part of it might be orange. They might bring in a little bit of blue, but that's a conscious style. People are doing it with theory in mind. And
Well, all of this processing we've talked about in other episodes, like salt. If you dump the whole thing of salt on your dinner, you're ruining the steak. But if you sprinkle it on, a little bit goes a long way. So on that, does your style evolve over time? So as you start to learn more and come to more meetings and come to more seminars and watch videos, do you guys think that evolves, or do people kind of just stay at a baseline?
I think people do evolve. The more they do it, the more they learn. It's kind of,
I know. I look back at stuff 2 years ago, and I'm like,
and you
was
cringe.
I
You're like, what was
thinking?
that? Yeah, exactly. And
And it may not have been bad even. It's just, you're just like, wow, I know so much more to get there quicker, easier, better.
I used to look back and I used to spend a lot of time on my photos like retouching. I used to think that, you had to spend so much time retouching every little thing and blemish and all this. And now my workflow, I spend very little time in post-process. I mean, granted, I do take the time to get it, in camera as close as I want it to be in camera, and then use it, just to kind of enhance it a little bit. But a lot of that has to do with, my personal style is I like my photos to look like photos. I like them to look natural. I don't want them to have a stylistic period or any kind of thing where people can look back at it 5, 10, 20 years from now. I want my photos to look timeless. I don't want it to look like, that was like so 2010,
Yeah. That it was trendy.
Yeah, that was trendy back then.
Sure.
It's like people do that.
Like Michelle with her pictures of the weddings and stuff, and you're like, with like all the different hot poses and styles and kiss the pumpkin
Right.
and all that stuff. It's just weird.
I'd agree because, I've done the same thing at night. You're working and you're tweaking things, and then you kind of do a before and after, and it's like, I've done nothing. It's like Scott says, you think you see it and you really don't. And,
And I've done stuff the other way where you do so much and I just hit reset, and you do that too.
Yeah,
Where it's just like, wow, what did I do?
or you
Just
come back
start
to
over.
it the next day and you look at it and what have I done? And a lot of the times when you're working on it, your eyes start making an accommodation to it. So, you can start putting more and more orange into something, for example, and if you do it subtly, you're not seeing that you're oversaturating it.
Yeah, and then you come
get
back and they look like
yeah,
Oompa
and then it's like,
Loompas, and they're
wow, So, yeah, you really need to get up, walk away, and then come back and look at it fresh just to make sure that you haven't overdone
This
it.
episode's totally got there.
We're
Oompa
off the
Loompas,
deep
furry.
end. Yeah, we're terribly off the deep end.
So in I know that this is one of the ideas that you wanted to talk about. So in creating a style, what advice can we give to our audience out there of how to start to develop their style?
Start out very basic. I mean, take your picture, and the first thing that you really want to do is just, get it straightened and get your white balance set and get a good starting point. And then just start putting a few things in and step back and take a look at the effect. I mean, really what you want to do is, create some shape in your images and create some contrasts and have everything from, some really great brights to some dark shadows so that you actually do get some contrast and some depth to it. And I think that it's important to work on that and master that before you start trying to throw a whole bunch of colors and stylized effects to it.
Yeah, for processing. But I mean, the capture end too. Because, photography starts from the capture end. So, I mean, I capture photos differently than I did 5, even 2 years ago. I mean, I have a lot more emphasis on the way I light my subjects. And, you know, when I was first starting out, it was like, hey, I can see them in my viewfinder, click. Now it's like, I'm looking at it, it's like, nah, the light's not good. And I'm a little bit more meticulous about that. And so my style has shifted even in the way that I take photos. Like
lots of metering.
Yeah, well, I don't meter it. I only meter in the studio. You're never gonna let I love my light meter, man. You're never gonna let me. I love my light meter.
Say hello to my little friend.
No, you make a good point. And I was going to try to touch upon that because style can be as simple as just the framing of your subject, and also developing your style comes along with experience, because depending on your subject matter, especially if you shoot kids or animals or whatever, you get much better at anticipating the moment and then capturing whatever moment you have in mind. And I think that all together comes, full circle to help add to what ultimately is your style. And I can look at photos of photographers that we know, in person, and the ones that I see most often. And I can see photos of photos that were shot by other people in the same subject matter. So Lisa Langell, that was here with us last time, she shoots a lot of wildlife, and I can almost always spot one of her photographs over other wildlife photographers because she has a signature style. And she's not doing any kind of,
major process.
Yeah, she doesn't do a lot to her images, a little tiny bit of sharpening and stuff, but she gets it right. She knows lighting, she knows animal behavior.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to everything, really. Choosing your lens, choosing your, how you shoot it, from which angle. I mean, if you look at, some photographers who are like vertically challenged, short, you'll look at their photos and like they're always shooting up at people. And so that becomes part of their style because, everyone looks more heroic and everybody looks tall and, but then you have other people who are very tall and they're looking down on people. And so that's a totally different look.
I've had a client get pissed off and want their money back because they're like, oh, all the pictures are from like a low angle. And what were you thinking? I'm like, the photographer was short. I'm like,
so I mean,
can't help
but that ends up being part of your style. I mean, it's like there's like so many factors that come into it. So it all like no one person is ever going to be like another person.
I think there's a little bit of a curve too. So we start out not really having any style. We gain some experience and we start to gain some tools and get some information to where we start moving in some directions, and then we can overdo it, right? And we can try to do everything we know in one photograph. And when we're at that point, we should just do what we know and then dial it back by 50%. Yeah. And then ultimately we'll get to where we know we're in the zone.
So we're out of time for today, or over time for today.
We didn't really talk about all the good stuff.
I know we didn't talk about the good stuff, so
we'll
get into that in the next episode.
Exciting episode.
Keep an eye out. Tell us if you have a style, if you hate our styles, or if you think your style is better than ours, and we may or may not read them. So put them in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time in After Hours.
Cheers.